Well, okay, welcome to this lesson in our ongoing series of lessons on RPG games for CPI 111. We left off the last lesson with our enemy able to wander around in the room nicely. We had a kind of a weird issue in that when the enemy would run against a wall, it would sometimes do this kind of nutty waving back and forth. And I did the worst thing ever as an instructor, which is that I fixed it behind the scenes, but that was enough days ago that I forgot what I did. So here are things that I think, if you are having that issue, you can attempt. First of all, in the sprite for the enemy, we set up the default sprite as the S enemy run down. Make sure the collision mask is also set to S enemy run down. And then on that sprite for the S enemy run down, check to see what you've got for your origin. I'm going to set mine, let's set S enemy run right. Let's get S enemy run down. There we go. I'm going to set mine to 32 by 54, and we'll double check that to see if everything's working or if we have some weird error still. So now we've got our little guy. Yeah, see, I see he's got that crazy kind of that jumping back and forth going. So I actually think that origin point is the issue. So what I want you to do is we're going to move the origin's X coordinate a little off center, basically. Oops. We're going to make it 30, and for the Y, we'll make the Y 54. Okay. And in doing so, no, Y sure doesn't look right. Oh, there we go. The width and height of my original S enemy run down sprite is 64 by 64, and I think part of the issue we're running into is having that origin point set directly in the center of the sprite. That perfectly centered sprite, coupled with the movement code we were using, is causing some weird issues. So now you see when I move it slightly, we no longer have that as a problem. Okay? So that should fix it. I'm pretty sure that's what I did. I'm pretty sure that's what I did. I want to make one more change. Another instance of me being bad is that off video, I was looking over my code that I had for the enemy object, and there was a piece of it that I didn't like, that I wanted to change a little bit. Just the code that I had, it worked fine, but it seemed a little bit too, it just seemed like I was making a piece of it too complicated. So I made a small change that you are welcome to make if you like, and it's here on the move state for our enemy object. I had you using the length dir underscore x, which is one of those nice utility built-in functions that does some math for you to allow you to find the length, what the distance is between the point where you're at and the, let me drop a little picture. So say if we're here and we're looking at something over here, we can use length dir underscore x to find out how far do we need to move in the x direction horizontally in order to reach the place on the x that would allow us to touch this part of a vector. Okay, and that works. That code we put in there did everything we needed to do, and we were just using it in order to show the correct version of the sprite by flipping the image X scale if we were facing towards the left, and not flipping it if we were facing towards the right. And the more I thought about that, I just thought that it may not be necessary to use this. So you can leave it as it is if you like, or you can play with it, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to comment out this piece. And you comment out anything by right-clicking and choosing comment selection or doing Control or Command K. Okay. And instead of using the fancy math, I'm going to do this. Get direction facing. This is our custom function. And I'm going to pass it whatever our current direction is, which remember is just going to be an angle between 0 and 360 degrees. And that is going to result, when I call that custom method, in storing a new value in an instance variable called direction facing, which I can then check if direction facing equals 2. Right? If direction facing equals 2, that means we're facing toward the left. Then image x scale equals -1, else image x scale equals 1. So this should do the exact same thing as what we did here. It's just, it uses this custom function we already have in there, combined with this direction facing, which is either going to be 0, 1, 2, or 3, remember? And it's 2 if it's facing to the left, or if we want, we've set up this nice enemy dir enumeration. So you can make use of that too. You can say, instead of saying 2, you can see enemy dir dot left. Direction facing equals enemy dir left. Well, then we want to have the image scale equals to -1. Okay. Now, allegedly, that will work the same way. Let's see if we have any errors. There's our guy. He hits the thing. Let's see what happens if he ever moves to the left here. There. Yeah, seems to be working, right? So it's just an alternative approach to doing the same thing we did before that doesn't make use of this length dir underscore x. Does it make a difference? No, not really. Not really. All right, what do I want to do next? I'd like us to allow the player to be able to do some damage to the enemy. Right now, well, I should say right now the player can hit the enemy, and in fact we see when the player swings the sword that we are correctly showing some knockback. Come up here and get him, take that. And again, I hit him again, but once I've hit him twice, because that's how much damage I'm dealing is 1 damage each time, and the enemy has a total of 2 hit points. Nothing happens. So I would like to make it so that if the player is injured to the point where they're now going to be dead, then I want to demonstrate the fact that the enemy is now dead. I should say not the player being dead, that the enemy is dead. I want to show that somehow. So let's do that. And to do that, we're going to do something that's an elaborated version of what we did in the platformer game. Remember when we were playing the platformer game, and actually in the koala game too, once you had done enough damage to kill the enemy, we instantiated a different version of the enemy, showed that out on the screen, and then caused that dead version of the enemy to disappear. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to create a new object, and this is going to be our dead enemy object. In fact, I'll call it that. O enemy dead. I'm going to give it the enemy run down sprite, and I'm going to say for the collision mask, just like I did on the regular enemy, I'm going to specify that for no matter which sprite we show with this object, I want it to use the collision mask that's associated with the enemy run down sprite. On this dead enemy, we'll have a create event. And what we're going to do on the create event is we're going to say, if I can get out of my way here, controller dot score. Remember, we set up a score variable on the controller object. We were going to increment that by 50 to give the player some points. We'll set the image speed of the sprite that's on the dead enemy equal to 0.3, just to have it animate slowly. And then we're going to run a repeat. And what is it we're going to do in this repeat? We're going to create a kind of a cool blood effect. You can see in here I've got this O blood object that was in the starter project I gave you, even though we haven't made use of it yet. And we're going to repeat iRandom range between 4 and 7. This is one of those things that's not super important that you have all the tons of details on how this thing works, and if I remember I'll put the code up on the Blackboard site. But basically what we're going to do is we want to instantiate the dead enemy, give the player some points, and then we're going to further instantiate from within that dead enemy's create event some particles of blood that appear out in our room. So I'm going to say var rand x equals iRandom range minus 4, 4. And because I'm lazy, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to make another local variable called rand_y, set it to the same thing. I'm going to play a sound, audio, play sound, and the sound is called SNKill, which I've given you in the starter project. Priority of 10, repeat or loop equals false. And then finally, I'm going to create layer, an instance, well, a collection of instances, because we're in a repeat loop here, but in this single call, I'm going to create an instance of the little blood particle, x plus underscore rand x, y plus, I should say, yeah, plus underscore rand y, put it on the enemy layer in our room, and we'll instantiate the O blood object. So what's the point of having this rand x and rand y with this between 0, minus 4 and 4? It just will position each blood particle that's created slightly to the left, slightly to the right, slightly above, slightly below where the dead enemy object is. That's all. Okay. Then on this dead enemy, we'll add an animation end event. And what we'll do is instance destroy. There we go. So again, this is just like the platformer where we'll have the player swinging his sword, hitting the enemy. When the enemy's health reaches 0, then we will instantiate a copy of the dead enemy in that same location, and we will also instantiate a collection of little blood images. Okay. And then once the dead enemy's animation has completed playing, then we'll destroy the dead enemy. And I want to take a look at this blood object here. I think I gave this to you in the starter project. It's already been set up for you. It just creates its create event. It just creates one blood particle. It bounces off the walls, and then it's destroyed when it reaches its own animation end. Okay. So where can we check to see if the enemy's health has reached 0, and if so, call the creation of that dead enemy object? Well, we can do it here on the enemy and in the enemy's step event. Right now all we're doing is we're inheriting the step event from the parent, and then we are also updating the sprite that gets displayed depending on which direction the enemy is facing. But let's come in here and check. Are we dead? Okay. If enemy health is less than or equal to 0 and state is not equal to enemy hit, then I'll tell you why we're doing these pair of checks in just a second. We'll create instance create layer. And what are we going to create? Right where we're at, we're going to create on the enemy layer in our room a copy of this dead enemy object that we just created a second ago. And we'll destroy the regular enemy object. Instance destroy. All right, so this is straightforward enough, right? So when we create our enemy, we give it some health. Where the heck am I doing that? Hello? Oh, it's on the parent. Ha 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 ha. On our enemy parent, in its create event, we're giving it enemy health. Okay. So here on the step event, we check if the enemy health has reached 0, which it will do as it is struck by the hitbox coming from the player. Okay, we've already set all that up. Then we want to create that. And the other thing is why are we checking if we're not in the hit state? That seems weird. It's just a way of making sure that how can I say that we are either in the idle or move state, okay, rather than being in the process of being hit, basically. Okay, all right. That's why we do that double check. Okay. Now, I'm not 100% sure we've set up everything, but let's check and see if we've made any errors up to this point. So now let's come in, come up to this guy, take that, and take that, and you'll see that's pretty close. It's still something a little funky. I don't know if you saw that. Where we created the blood, he stopped moving, and then he died, but he didn't look right. And why is that he doesn't look right? Do you know what it is? Well, let's take a look back at our setup for all of these things. Remember that we have a enemy dead sprite. So if I go back into my enemy dead object, I set up the enemy dead object's sprite to be the enemy run down sprite, which is not the one I want, right? So go into the enemies. We have an enemy dead sprite. And I'll do the same thing here. I'm going to set the enemy dead sprite's collision mask to be enemy dead. So it should be fine. I don't actually don't think that's right. We want to set this to be the enemy run down collision mask. Okay. We want everything. Every enemy, no matter which sprite we're showing, should always use that original enemy run down collision mask. Okay. Okay, let's give it a try. So it was working right, it just wasn't showing the right sprite. Okay, here we go. Now we come along, come up here, take that, boom, take that again, boom, and now he turns into the dead guy, he dies, and we have these little bouncing blood spots. Cool.